Okay, let's see. All right, I think that's good. They actually didn't test this out before I got started, so whatever, just bear with me. Okay, I think that's much better. I don't have my earpiece in, but I think the sound's coming in good, so we'll kind of just flow with this and let this be the first 3 or 4 segment. So, yes, much love, many blessings. Right now, I think it's important to, before we even really get going into the segment, that we really give honor and thanks to the fact that we are in this Libra season. We're closer to the year being done than we may have realized, and it may seem like time is moving much faster than we're giving credit. Like, our weeks are flying, this year is almost over, and it's like it's going to be 2023 before we even know it. So let's see here. Bear with me one moment. Okay, so like I said, it's your boy Lotus, and we're doing another, well, the first 3 or 4 segment. I actually have a lot of notes. I feel like I've done more of these segments than I realized, but I actually realized this is actually the first one I'm putting out. But let's really get this rolling, because I really feel like some of these topics will be things that are good for Clubhouse, which is something that, one of my friends told me about that I'm actually in the process of getting set up. So for one, anybody interested in joining Clubhouse, where we can just like talk about a lot of these esoteric things, and just adding like Kink Mindfulness, and just stepping more into our own empowerment of our sacred energy, and just how to really work with aligning ourselves and our chakras and all that good stuff. I'll definitely be putting that together, and if that's something that you want to be a part of, then definitely shoot me a DM, for that, and I'll definitely send you those links. And when that becomes available, I think that would be something really dope that we can put together and make happen and flourish. But as far as this Libra season, this feels like a really good opportunity. Like I said, it was the Libra new moon. The reason I'm talking about these things is because, with what's shining right now with Libra sun, we have to make sure that are we getting the pleasures and feeling the things that we want to feel. So this really brought into my awareness that it's a great opportunity to talk about kink mindfulness and our pleasures and the things that we're pursuing, and are we actually fulfilling the relationship to the desires that we want. So for me, the 3 or 4 segments are really based around a lot around just really tapping into that sacred divinity, that sacred hoe, that sacred prostitute, getting into like the Ishtar and like the Gilgamesh, when they had like the sacred prostitutes, and there was this understanding that, hey, there's a strong need for the sacred healing that comes with sexual energy. And what are we doing with our sexual energy? Are we honoring the people who have an abundance of this and are actually have these deep and ancient wisdoms associated with the sexual energy? Is it being put out so that the world can heal? So 3 or 4 is a lot of honoring of the sacred whole, a lot of honoring of our sexual energy and our full force, and if we're being liberated in that energy. And I think that sometimes we want to just dive into all that good stuff, all the empowering things, but a lot of times some of us don't even have access to this energy because we're dealing with traumas, and we're dealing with hangups and insecurities, or people who have projection fields, and the male gaze and the lens that's on people in their respective spaces are not able to actually enjoy their lifestyles and their energies the way that they would like to. So it can create conditionings. It can create imposter syndromes. It can create these numb sensations or neurological disassociations. And a lot of these things are actually associated with Libra. So like Libra, like as I'm thinking about it, it's like, okay, we know we're going to govern that nervous system. We're going to govern the kidneys. So, the kidneys is a filtration system. So it's like, okay, what's it doing even though we don't see it? Like if the kidneys are taking in too much, even though they're designed to filter out things that are not good for the body, if they take on too much, then they're going to, have to be filtered. You're going to have to go to the hospital. And it's also sometimes a sign that, that what you're taking in is too much saturation. If the organs that detoxify toxins in your body start to shut down because they're getting too many toxins, that means you're taking in too much of something before your body can have a proper chance to address the issue. So in much the same way, like when we're dealing with Libra and these associations in the body and this collective energy that we're feeling right now, there's this need to make sure that we're kind of addressing all things that come in, but are we getting that chance to detox, or are we just kind of acting as if in neutrality? Because again, Libra deals a lot with neutrality. Are we being active or passive in creating it? So kind of getting on to like sexual stigmas and things of that nature. I believe that Libra governs a lot. Like when we enter the Libra season, we deal with the fall equinox. We deal with that energy and that connection between the sun and the moon state, having that bridge. So that means that we're also dealing with our active self or our physical self and the energetic state or the subtle energy or our sexual energy that's operating or flowing through our body. And that's the part that's being operating unseen or in a sense unmoving that we're not giving account for. And Libra just being associated with justice. It makes me really feel like when you're before a judge, and it makes me feel a lot of times your actions have to speak for themselves. And that's very fitting because for Libra, it's not about how we feel about the connection, or it's not about how Libras feel about the connection. And during this collective time with Libra's sun, it's more about what's done. It's more about what's being shown in the energy. It's not about biases and nepotism and things of that nature. So Libra definitely works to get what's best for everyone, or to make sure that everyone is good. So sometimes playing that back burner role can make it hard to remember yourself. So you may not stand up when it comes to the self. So the collective during this time, what this sensation you're going to be feeling is if you're not in alignment, and alignment is just simply, are you getting the needs that you desire to get? You might want a relationship, you might want to be making more money, you might not be traveling, or feel that you should be connected to your part of yourself or have a relationship with yourself that should be traveling more. And you're seeing people travel, you're seeing people post on social media about traveling and the places that they're going to, and you're feeling away, and you're trying to address these activations within yourself, why you're feeling these enemies, why you're feeling these jealousies, and where you should be right now is not exactly where you imagine. And I think in order to actually talk about stigmas and talk about the state of things, it's important to talk about the energy that we're experiencing in this time, the sun energy that's impacting the collective, and the impacts that those collective placements affect, and since we're speaking on, just sacral energy or sacred energy, and that energy is intimate, it's very precious. We definitely have to give credit to like Venus, and Venus is in Virgo. And with Venus being in Virgo, it's really interesting how we're not letting things go. Like whatever it is that's bugging us about something that we've romanticized, or something that we are waiting to get to the bottom of, that's kind of still hanging over us. We're not able to enjoy the orgasm because we're still thinking about that one thing in the back of our mind. Is kind of the energy. And if you have difficulties in the area of your Venus, or communicating your deeper needs, or those needs just haven't been being addressed for a long time, because Venus is long term, then it's coming out and it's lashing out now, because Libra is a sign of justice. So with that aspect being on sun, it's flaring up if you've been being starved or neglected in those areas within your relationships where you think that you're supposed to be getting those things. So jumping into like, what are these sexual stigmas, and just what is it that goes on like during this time, and how are we supposed to get what it is that we want? Particularly because I realized when I said sexual stigmas and body positive. There's a lot of things that impact the way that we approach our bodies and approach ourselves, because all sexual experience begins with self and then just mirrors out before we do anything. And I really feel in a strong sense that sometimes, for one, we don't even take proper account of what's going on when we do what we do, when we feel a heart activation, when we kiss someone, when we have sex with someone, when we fantasize about somebody. You know, like there's areas that like are generated in our subtle bodies that, you know, connect with other people. You know, like when we make connections with anybody new, any new connection, there is a energetic connection, and those connections, if we were to give awareness to them, have, in a sense, a color or energetic color, and those colors might, a lot of times, I notice nowadays personally, if I'm just going to be real about it, most connections of people that I come across are usually red or orange, and I don't run into a lot of connections where they're yellow. Their yellow is great, you know what I'm saying, but generally speaking, it fluctuates. Usually, there's usually a blend. Usually it's yellow, orange, but usually a lot of times most people's connections are red. And red isn't necessarily bad, but red is usually a strong indicator of what the focus of the connection is. And a lot of times people, with how this generation is now, like people are looking to get their needs met or satisfied that haven't been being satisfied, especially kicking off of just some of the opening back up and liberation from some of the lockdown just a couple years back. It's a lot of base needs that need to be satisfied. And if they're not being satisfied, people are moving on and not really waiting anymore because they don't know what's going to happen. I think an important thing is when we're only focused on self, we're not considering the connection to other people. So we may be satisfying our needs. We may be having sex. We may be only having consideration for what happens when I'm involved and not the aftermath. So, in particular, just speaking on sexual hygiene and what happens with body and sexual exchange, both energetically as well as physically. And what's really alarming, I think when you give consideration to like just the state of the collective that has sex in this day and age, and the lack of sexual knowledge, and just the operating myths, is almost like terrifying. Sometimes it's just know that like, we're kind of like just taking a gamble out here. But in a lot of ways, it's like when it comes to sexual health, when it comes to like the vibration of who we're connecting to, I think that who we pick plays a great factor on the exchange. Like a lot of times we have to give credit to our energetic body. So like when we're dealing with, for example, our heart chakra, for men and women, there's a difference between how our heart chakra operates. Because as masculine vessels, our heart chakra is going to be feminine in nature. So on the opposite end, women's, because they have a physical feminine body, your heart chakra is going to be masculine in nature. So what this means is that as a guy or as men, our heart is activated through energy activation, such as kundalini energy, sexual exchange, things of that nature. So you'll notice that when we're operating just in our sun energy, we're just whatever, we're just clay, we're just awake, we're just focused on whatever it is. But because our heart is feminine and the inner part doesn't come to life until activated either through sex, you'll notice, for example, men usually become more emotional after sex, or when we're starting to fall in love, we start to feel more, or when we trust the woman that we're with or the person that we're connected to that's activating us, we will become more soft or feel the need to feel more nurturing. And likewise, on the flip side, when women are having sex with men or just connected with a partner that's activating them, their masculine heart will feel more confident. They'll feel more capable of enacting the energy and the feelings that they think in their mind and that you are feeling about the world around you, and you'll feel like that those possibilities I can actually make a choice on that. I'll feel more confident. I feel like I don't need anyone else. So that energy is there. So by nature of like when we look at words like yoni, and I know I'm jumping around some, but there's purpose for this because there's a lot of root words and things of that nature. But when we jump around to words like yoni, which is the Hindu word that deals with pussy, and it's basically when it translates, it deals with the sacred space And lingam is the opposite end. We're dealing with the divining rod with men. And it's important to go to these words like yoni because when we have to look at the nature of how feminine energy moves, and we have to look at the nature of how masculine energy moves. So by nature of feminine energy, we're dealing with receiving, surrender, taking in. We're also dealing with multiple possibilities. Anything can come from this. So it's unlimited. It's unsourced. There's no boundaries, no parameters. So by nature of women and by nature of the yoni, by nature of the design, you're designing, you're comfortable when you're taking in things. You're comfortable when you're receiving and surrendering to receive something in. That's why when you have sex with men, there's this exchange. That's why sometimes the DNA gets into your walls, gets into your lining. And I say these things to say that by nature, like how we're naturally designed to give. We're naturally designed that the lingam nature is a direct or it's a choice. And it's focus. It's penetrating. It's lingam energy is divining, right? It's penetrating by nature. So by nature, it looks to force its way onto a situation, whether healthy or otherwise, in its natural state, it feels like it has to go through. So that means that by nature, it's leaving an imprint or leaving behind something. So when we sometimes get to sex and we sometimes get to looking at, like, for example, like pH balance, like just so many stigmas that just come with like hygiene, and half the time how hygiene is associated just purely with women and like all these products, all this douching bullshit, all this Adam's Eve shit, and it's associated with getting women in their hygiene alignment because if she smells, it's on her. And half the time, like, people don't even give credit to the fact that men have a pH. But why is it that we only notice women's pH? And that's because by nature that men are asymptomatic. We're asymptomatic on pretty much everything. Like, we're asymptomatic a lot of times, whether it's not even just dealing with like STIs and STDs, but just energetically, we're asymptomatic. And that's because there was a reason that it was talked about, like I actually had the deck, the Hoodoo Tarot deck, and it talks about how men used to be associated with the moon. And how, like, in a lot of cultures, like, we associate men with femininity. I mean, we associate the moon with femininity, but really, like, men were associated as the ones that were the carriers of the moon and the orators. And the moon's associated with men also speaks to the nature of the fact that men, a lot of times, like, our feminine concealment, because feminine energy is concealing our feminine heart. We don't always divulge our true intent right away because we want to bring you in before we make that penetrating decision, because that was our focus to begin with. So I say that to say that by nature, just with having a feminine heart and that our masculine vessel being masculine, we don't show signs of things because we give out. So energetically, we give out. So we may even have something, but we're not showing the symptoms. We're almost kind of like patient zero in a lot of situations. So on the other end, it's like we could be having like a high pH and have very acidic semen because of our diet. We could be eating fucking McDonald's and down in 444s and all that bullshit, and then our fucking semen is super acidic. But that's just on us. Like, that's not going to generate anything. I mean, don't get me wrong, energetically, yeah, that's off. But from an exchange standpoint, it doesn't go anywhere. So it's only seen if you pick up on it. So that acidicness, that sweat, all that stuff, that's being deposited into you. Because remember, at the end of the nature, masculine energy is giving. You're receiving. So you're going to reflect everything that we give you. So even if our pH is off, we're not going to show any signs of that. You're going to show the signs of that regardless of anything, even if you have good hygiene. And it's like really bad because it's like, it's to the point that even if we have it could be to the point where we have multiple partners as a man. And because we have multiple partners and we're taking that energy, when you have multiple partners, hygiene or otherwise, that energy is hard for people who are sensitive, who may not be having a bunch of partners to deal with. So then that same guy goes back to the girl, and now her pH is off, and now she's starting to have a smell because you're throwing off her, with all that acidic nature, you're starting to throw off the pheromones and the good chemicals within her yoni. So it's kind of like the blame still gets deposited there because the signs and the evidence are only being shown in the areas where it's deposited, but all the while we may just be kind of cleaning up and washing our hands the wiser, and that's how we work energetically and in the physical. And I think where this does a disservice is when we don't, when we kind of throw rocks and hide our hands, we don't necessarily associate or address issues in areas where they need to be addressed, and all the while we kind of, the media and social hygienes and social standards always associate hygiene issues with only being one-sided. So it's kind of like, are we ever really addressing the issue when we make products and then we market things that actually further encourage the problem? Because douching and summer's eve shit and any scented shit is really fucking with you and re-encourages that, when all the real and realistically it's within the lifestyle, and certain things just don't lie at the end of the day. Because if you have a bunch of partners and one person is none the wiser, it's like that energy, that hygiene, that acidicness, and then if the person is fucking on a bunch of people who also don't have the best hygiene or have high acidic count, then that's gonna throw the good hygiene off in you, and then you're gonna be off, even if it's like just one time. And it's like no one's taking accountability, and that's because the accountability and the evidence only shows up with the women. It shows up where it's surrendered. I think that it's really important sometimes to know truth versus myth. Like even in like the hospital, sometimes it's like it's so hard to get into the body. It's so hard to appreciate the body because there's so many default standards of the body that have to be overcome before you can even enjoy the body. Like just like for me personally, like I mean as a guy, like when I go to like get physicals and things like that, I don't personally enjoy it, not because of any hang-ups, it's just because I don't want to fucking go to the doctor. But like when you have to get like regular checkups, like I've had friends in the past or even now that like I show up for support for, you know, different reasons, whether they have scares or just needing whatever the fuck. Sometimes like these doctors be out here crazy, like for real. And like those statistics that you see sometimes really do be true, where doctors they gaslight black women more. They gaslight black people more, but they gaslight black women more. And a lot of times I've seen this shit, like where I have friends that'll go to the hospital and like they'll have like just a really poor experience, and then like I'll come with them, like, you know, I'll be like, you know, I'll give you, you know, support, just show up. Well, this is before the fucking you know, all the lockdown pandemic shit, but it's like that's what really makes it also really hard too. But like this is the gaslighting when you would show up, like having someone there to support, to back you up. The doctors talk to you different when women aren't there by themselves, and it's like they normalize things as just okay, when in actuality you're actually suffering and going through pain. Like I don't tell you that I don't give a fuck. I have a dick, and I still feel like if a doctor normalizes cis, like you really should find another doctor. If they gaslight you, then you should find another doctor. Like a doctor should not be normalizing cis. Personally, and I think that the normalizing of procedures, like just getting, what do you call that shit when you get the just the procedure where they get the stent, you know, put in your yoni to, you know, stop you from being able to get impregnated. The word slips my mind at this time, and it's like sometimes I feel like we do procedures where it's like we can do it, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's the best in the long term just because it's doing its intended function right now. Like on an energetic level, like just feeling that block in the root is kind of like, you're probably going to feel something, and then they normalize it by saying like, oh, well, some cis may be normal. It's like, no, that's not normal. That's normal as an aftermath or byproduct of doing this, but that doesn't mean that it's okay. And these things get normalized, and then it's kind of like you're just made to have to deal with putting band-aids on these things. And it's like, if you have medical professionals giving you misinformation, you have a system that's marketed giving you misinformation, you have a culture, a subculture and a romantic culture that both operates off of stigmas and myths that's giving you misinformation about your body, and then you have to deal with whatever things that are going on in your own household about how you're supposed to operate. It makes it really hard sometimes to stand in your own power, to be liberated within your own body positivity, and also truly just touching on like this, the Libra energy and knowing where energy is to know where shit's really coming from. Because honestly, sometimes when we're operating with this lifestyle that we have now, where kind of like it's so easy for everybody to have multiple partners, and through social media and in person, and no one really has to be real. You really never know what energies are being deposited into you when you're not taking time with people. And your body is always trying to tell you what's going on, but people on the outside are a lot of times trying to tell you something else. When your body operates a certain way, it doesn't really matter. It's always going to speak its truth, and like your body should always be in alignment. Like you shouldn't have a smell, and like, I mean, as guy or woman, it's like your pH is going to tell you through how you're eating. If you're not hydrated, if you're feeling dry, your body's going to tell you those things. And it's a responsibility, and pH balance is both the responsibility of men and women. And I think that a lot of times we just disassociate that shit and just act like, hey, that's on you, and then we kind of like can just go out hoeing, and then we come back and then we dump off on you one time, and then your pH is off, and then it's like, then we're looking at you like, what the fuck is wrong with you? And all the while, we're not taking any accountability. Like, it's to the point that, like, sometimes some of you as women are so sensitive that even if we have just, like, had a shower and maybe just went out and worked a little bit that day, not doing anything vigorous, but just, you know, like work that day, your pH might be thrown off if we have sex with you one time. So it's kind of like, the point is, like, if some of you can be that sensitive, imagine what it's like when we're bringing multiple partners around that you know and don't know about. And then you're trying to regulate your body. You're trying to care for your body. You're trying to feel confident in your body, but you can't even regulate the energy that's being deposited in your body. And our bodies our physical is a metaphysical reflection, is a reflection of our metaphysical. So if you can't even control what's going on with your physical body, and you're being duped and being tricked, or you're having energy deposited and exchanged into you under influence, then you never are in the driver's seat of your body, and you don't know what energy is operating in your body on a metaphysical level. This is how things slip in. This is how you get hijacked, because you have other people passing on puppeteering energies through other people that you're unaware of. So you got to be attuned to that. These stigmas hang you up about your body and tell you you're not good enough. Sometimes you're competing with other people that you don't even know about, having backdoor competitions that you're completely unaware of, and wondering why you're having dreams about these people that you've never even met before. And that's because of the bridges. You got to check the bridges. You got to check the connections during this time. I definitely want to add more to this, but I wanted to get this just kind of this ball rolling. Definitely drop comments if this resonates with you, and if you want to like know more, or just so there's things that you've been curious about talking about and how things relate to energy activations, sacred energy exchanges, and things of that nature, definitely let me know. Drop a DM of things that you want to see. And like I said, if you also want to get that link to the Clubhouse, I'll definitely keep you posted and be sending those links out when I have that together. All in all, this is a blessed day. I feel really good getting back on track. I really originally, when I was doing these segments, I was doing videos and stuff with my notes. But after kind of just getting like that attack and then that semi-identity theft thing, I was just kind of like, this took a lot of energy to align this. And the fact that I was able to even like just get that resolved in like a day just really just speaks to the vibrational difference to where I used to be, because there was nothing less than spirit and my own understanding to help to make sure that I'm protected. And I will say that just in wrapping up, that during this Libra season, there's some really amazing things that can happen right now. But really protect yourself. There's a lot of people trying to destroy people for no reason. It's a lot of very strong passive-aggressive energy, very intense energy that wants to see people fail. And I'm not for it, but just make sure you protect yourself and are operating in your truth and operating with justice, because that justice is here in the Libra season. But in short, yeah, definitely drop comments if you definitely feel things that you want to see or just spark things for you. I'll be doing more segments. I may even be doing part 2s and 3s of this, just to kind of get a feel for how it goes, because right, like I was saying, yeah, when that shit happened the other day, it kind of threw me off, because I had segments lined up with my notes, but then I was like, you know what, fuck it. Obviously something keeps coming up and blocking me, so let me just kind of like do a live and just put this out, and then I'll just flow with it as I go. But definitely want to roll with this and kind of fine-tune it as we go. There's other segments as well, like the 1134 pose, which is like the hell yeah, and just dealing with our sacred Lilith energy. So we're definitely going to build on this as we go, and I hope that you guys really are enjoying this and look forward to more of it as we go. But much love, many blessings, and happy Friday. I hope this resonates with you, and remember to walk in your power. Ashe.